Welcome to Newsline Mediaverse, and you are watching On Point with me. In a significant development, the Manipur High Court has deleted its earlier direction to consider the ST status for the Meiteis. The tribal bodies, however, say that the modified judgment doesn't change the essence, as the state can still appeal to the union government for inclusion of Meiteis in the scheduled tribe list. At the same time, a massive rally took place in Imphal, with thousands have gathered. They came out to protest against the proposed extension of the suspension of Operation Pact. So there are two things here. So is the High Court verdict a point where some sort of a resolution can start the decision, and simultaneously can the SoO agreements being reworked? But the fact that this ST status issue was one of the most important precursors last May when the violence started, and the action on it is itself is an indication. On the other hand, SoO matter is pretty complicated. If you terminate them, then you know what you do, because government can go ahead and give them an extension, because ultimately it buys time. And anyway, parts of such agreements are in public and parts of them are not in public because they are national security issues. So, but before we go any further, let me play out a bite of the people who were part of the rally.
फिजिकल जो पार्टीशन ऑलरेडी हो गया है, लेकिन वो सरकार ये मणिपुर का जनता, खास करके जो वैली में रहने वाले नेटिव पीपल्स लोग को आश्वासन देना पड़ेगा, ये लोग बताना पड़ेगा, प्रूव करना पड़ेगा। इस जो अभी जो सवाल उठ रहा है, जो ऑलरेडी पार्टीशन हो चुका है, ये लोग का इन्वेस्टिगेशन देने बारी है, क्योंकि जो हम लोग वैली में रहने के बाद आज सोचामपुर नहीं जा पा रहे हैं, आज मोरे नहीं जा पा रहे हैं, आज कामपू भी नहीं जा पा रहा है। हम लोग आज जो हमारा सीमित है, ऑलरेडी हमारा लॉ एंड ऑर्डर, वो लोग जो मन मर्जी करके फिरौती करके, जो नेशनल हाईवे 2 हो या जिरीबाम हो या इम्फाल मोरे रूट हो, ये जो जितना भी कर रहा है, इसके ऊपर में गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया और गवर्नमेंट ऑफ मणिपुर को काम करना चाहिए। अगर वो लोग सही टाइम पर इसका इलाज नहीं करेगा तो पूरा मणिपुर का इंटायर पीपल एक साथ होके हम क्या मुसीबत क्या लिमिट में आएगा, शायद सरकार को अंदाजा नहीं है। ये मैं रखना चाहता हूँ। हमारा प्रस्ताव है जो कि जो सही मायने में जो सही है, जो जनता जो देख रहा है, जो सही मायने में जो सही है, हम रखेंगे। आज का गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, खास करके मिनिस्टर ऑफ होम अफेयर्स, साथ ही साथ हमारा मणिपुर का मुख्यमंत्री जो कि बीजेपी लीड गवर्नमेंट अभी संचालित कर रहा है, साथ ही साथ हमारा गवर्नर ऑफ मणिपुर, तो हम इसमें रखेंगे।
So let me go across to Mr. Chakma, Director Rights and Risk Analysis Group. I am also joined by Dr. Thangzuka Tombing, Assistant Professor, National Law University, Judicial Academy, Guwahati, and Group Captain Retired B. Nandakumar Sharma. But I'll go to Suhas first. The decision which has been taken in context of the court, whereby Manipur High Court on Wednesday modified its 2023 order in part, whereby contentious direction was issued to the state government for considering the inclusion of Meiteis in the scheduled tribes ST list. Your opening comments.
Well, I think the High Court never had the jurisdiction. This is not something to be decided by the court as to who should be included in the scheduled tribes or scheduled caste list and who should not be included. And this will go down in the history as one of the judgments which led to the killing of so many people. It's possible that there are other factors which contributed to these killings by both sides, but the fact remains it is the judgment of the High Court which had triggered the violence. The most unfortunate part of this is that when the High Court passed this particular order, I mean, there was no reason for it, because there are, up to number of judgments which in a way had elaborated the process for listing some communities into the list of the scheduled castes or scheduled tribes. As I had said many a times, that for inclusion of a community in the scheduled caste, or say scheduled tribes in this particular case. First of all, there is a need for a sociological studies whether they have the tribal traits or not. After the completion of the sociological study, then of course it goes to the
So, Has,
state
can I
government.
take you back? Can I take you back a little, because a lot of people don't understand this issue. Why was the demand by the Meitei community to be part of the scheduled tribe list? Why did this demand come up?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a question of access to resources, jobs, employment, and reservation. So when you talk about the scheduled tribe status, of course, we are talking about the political reservation from jobs to political representation. It's access to the land and territories, because if you're a non-tribal, you cannot buy land in tribal areas. So genuinely, the Meiteis have their own anguish on this issue. That's there, and it has been there, and they are not the only group. And in fact, what to say, in many states, number of groups continue to demand scheduled tribe status. But what I was saying is that there is a process to identify, and which is laid down in the procedure itself. That the state has to conduct the sociological study, then it has to go to the Registered General of India. Registered General of India has to confirm it. Then it goes to the cabinet, which forwards to the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. National Commission for Scheduled Tribes has to approve it. Then after approval, then of course the center, the union government has to approve it. Then after approval of the same, then the union may place an amendment of the constitution. To include a particular community in the list. So where is the role of the judiciary? Judiciary has no role. Judiciary can only adjudicate whether a community has been included or not included based on the criteria of the procedures followed. So there was no case for the High Court to pass the judgment, and we have come to an extremely unfortunate situation. And I think the judges sometimes, of course, the Chief Justice of India had been categorical about it, that, High Court didn't have the jurisdiction to pass such an order. So I would say that, this was something which is uncalled for, and it's a lesson for all the judges in this country. That sometimes when you pass this kind of orders, that it can trigger absolute violence, which is, then you can blame the government.
Okay.
But there's a lesson for all of us to learn.
Okay, fair enough. Nandakumar Sharma, your opening arguments on this by the decision first.
Yeah, this order by the High Court Manipur was given on 27 March 2023. And based on this judgment, the whole crisis apparently has started. That is, this crisis started on 3rd May, whereas judgment was on 27 March. So there is a gap. So it's not exactly fallout of this judgment. And also the lawyers are highly highly educated, and they know the Constitution of India. They know who can give inclusion or removal from the list of scheduled castes. There is a let-down process, as the previous panelist has already told. There is a recommendation from the government of Manipur, then Ministry of Tribal Affairs, followed by Register, then National Commission, then Cabinet, then President signs, and the amendment. So these are the whole process. I'm sure the judge also knows it. And however, the judgment has been, presented in the eyes of the people or to the mass, that High Court has given a diktat that inclusion of Meitei in the scheduled tribe list, which is absolutely incorrect. The judges and the judiciary, they know their limitations, they know their power. And in fact, they have not given the order on their own. It is based on the petition filed by the Meitei group, so that the government process the pending this recommendation of Meitei to include in the scheduled caste. So the Manipur High Court, they have ordered to process the long pending issue of this. They can either recommend or not recommend. That's the decision of the government. So this is what. But however, it has been presented that the judiciary has been blamed for giving direction to the government or passing unparliamentary some sort of order, which is incorrect in my opinion. We all know that. See, the Meitei pending issue of inclusion in a scheduled tribe has to be taken up by the state government. So, but due to the pressure of the other community, the judgment has also been changed, as I have reportedly known today. And it shows that the law of the country has been under the pressure by say dictate of the few people, it shows the morality of the or law and order situation in the Manipur, in particular in the Manipur state. Such things should not be happening because it gives a very wrong message. If decision of a judgment can be changed under the pressure of certain community, it gives a wrong message to the whole community or to the whole of India. The judiciaries, they are highly learned, they know what is their role and their say. So it should be viewed as a judiciary being say wrongly passed the decision or something like that. It is the misrepresentation of the order or decision.
Okay, I know, Mr. Chakpa, you wanted to come in, but Dr. Tombing is also with me. Let me just take a quick reaction from him, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Tombing. Your opening comments.
Portion of the judgment, whereby the High Court has ordered for initiating the process of ST status for the Meiteis community in Manipur is very much in tune and in line with the established laws and principles as was envisioned in state of Maharashtra versus Milind. So in that context, my observation and then the repercussion that has happened in a sort of way, many factors taken together. Of course, the High Court judgment did spark some kind of a concern, but then we have to try to map what is this idea of being an ST and then the entitlement that is attached with it. And apparently in the Supreme Court also, there is a matter which is pending whereby the Supreme Court is looking into this aspect of what do you mean by being scheduled, you know. So it's not about class, it's about in one way a generalization, and then within that generalization there has to be some kind of other orders by which certain communities may be scheduled as backward or maybe tribe. Now the Northeast context of scheduled tribe is very different from the rest of the country because of the racial and then the ethnic concerns that are also very much there. And therefore, sometimes I wonder how the idea of ST and then the concern, other multi-layered concern of creamy layers and other things will finally hit this particular notions and narrative with regard to a certain entitlement that is attached with ST in the long run. Because in Assam also there is this a pertinent boiling concern that Taya home and other communities will be maybe starting their protest soon if they are not included in the ST list soon. So there are many concerns that are writ large within that idea of scheduled tribe itself. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's very wonderfully put. Brijesh, your opening comments on this?
Well, I think, I mean, this judgment, I agree with Nandakumar Sharma that this is not the only way, the only reason why violence started in Manipur, because it started somewhere in the starting of month of May, and this judgment was given on 27th or delivered on 27th of March. But we all know why Meiteis want to be part of the scheduled tribe list and all the reasons, reservation, they are not able to buy lands in the hills and the various other things attached to it. But the most important thing is that this particular judgment was also instrumental in creating the kind of havoc which we are witnessing, which is refusing to die down. It was not the only reason, but it provided the ambit at the start, for this kind of conflict which started, and various tribal groups and all, they decided to take advantage of it, and what we have been witnessing since 3rd of May 2023 onwards till the day we are talking, that kind of violence has stopped, but the sporadic violence which shatters the imagination of peace in the state of Manipur is still very much there. And I think the government, it's very surprising, honestly speaking, that High Court judge actually went ahead and included that paragraph in that judgment, and now after all these months he has to remove it.
Okay. Suhas, I'll come to you, and I'll also be joined by Rami Niranjan Desai, a noted author. But it's time to slip into a break. And in break, I'll tell you that we are counting down to the big event that News9 is organizing this coming weekend. The News9 Global Summit is about New India that is recognized as a rising economic power, a major global player, theme of the summit is how India is poised for the next big leap. What India thinks today's summit is being organized by the TV9 group, and the edition of the summit is unmissable because the keynote address is by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. What India thinks today? Summit, Feb 25th, 26th, 27th.
From fragile 5 to top 5, from a laggard to a leader, India under Modi has reimagined the world order. Presenting the second edition of TV9, What India Thinks Today. Summit theme, India poised for the next big leap. Listen to Prime Minister Modi unveil his vision for Viksit Bharat at News 9 Global Summit, a TV9 network initiative.
Presented by Poonawalla FinCorp, enabling dreams. Co-powered by Sugar Free, एक छोटा सा चेंज फॉर फिटनेस. बनेगा तो बढ़ेगा इंडिया. अल्ट्राटेक देश का नंबर 1 सीमेंट. नो स्ट्रेस फिनोलेक्स. प्रिया गोल्ड बटर डिलाइट बिस्किट्स कलौंजी के साथ मक्खन का तड़का. स्पेशल पार्टनर प्रभु जी, मिठाई हो या नमकीन, बस मौका चाहिए जी. सर्वोकॉन ट्रांसफॉर्मर एंड स्टेबलाइजर, रखे सब कंट्रोल में. सर्वोकॉन.
Let me go across to Mr. Chakma and Rami. A very warm welcome to you for joining my show. Mr. Chakma, a lot of people are saying that it doesn't change anything, you know. Is it correct?
So I just wanted to clarify one particular thing which Nandakumar Sharma had mentioned. What the order was passed on 19 April 2023. So the protest started on 3rd May in the hope that the direction will be complied with. If there was nothing wrong with the direction, as Nandakumarji had said, then I think the paragraph would not have been deleted. What does the paragraph say? The paragraph says the first respondent shall consider the case of the petitioner for inclusion of the Meiteis community in the scheduled tribe list expeditiously, preferably within a period of 4 weeks from the date of receipt of a copy of these orders in terms of the averments set out, etc. So what does the order say? The order says the first respondent, that's state of Manipur, shall, which means mandatorily. In legal terms, when you say shall, it has to be mandatorily complied with. What do they have to comply with? For inclusion of the Meiteis community in the scheduled tribe list without following any of the procedures which I had mentioned. So if there was no protest on 3rd of May, because at this point of time, actually, I was contacted by a large number of tribal groups, both the Nagas and the Meiteis, and I had said that they should challenge the validity of the order. Then, of course, I mean, the moment the judgment was published, then the Nagas, all the tribal groups were consulting each other, what is the best way, and I had laid out the procedure. So if there was no protest on 3rd of May, or if on 3rd of May adequate security arrangements were made, because there are some allegations that security forces were withdrawn from where the riots had taken place. I don't think the riots would have expanded to this extent. There are a number of factors. When both communities live side by side, it's natural that there are lots of conflicts at times over land, territories, resources, and this is not something new. The tribals have been there from the inception of this country, from the time the republic came into being, and so are the Meiteis trying to demand inclusion into the scheduled tribe list. That had not led to any kind of riots. And I think on 3rd May, once the violence started and the allegations that the Kuki armed groups were using sophisticated arms, that the Meiteis thought they also had to defend themselves, then it spiraled out of control. And once, you have to understand one thing. The mob violence is very difficult to control. It's more difficult in areas where you cannot patrol, where you cannot take out flag marches, when the terrains are difficult. And once it goes out, we have to remember one thing, tribalism is very strong. We can smell each other even though we look possibly the same. So that's why, spiral out of control. And I'm sure if there was no judgment of this nature, I don't think the protest would have taken place. And it's unfortunate that it turned violent. So we have to say that there are other factors, but the primary factor is the, judgment and the fear of the tribals that, they will be included in the scheduled tribe list. Because after all, the judgment uses the term shall. So if the judgment was correct, So they will not have deleted it. So I am not blaming anybody. Just trying to say one particular fact that even when the judges pass this kind of judgment, you have to be very careful. On the Ram Mandir day, if the UP police chief was not come by the chief justice to make adequate arrangement, etc., maybe there would have been violence in the country. So why do you have to take security measures? Precisely because of the sensitive nature of the judgments and the inclusion of the communities at this point of time, either in Assam or 6 communities in Assam or in Manipur. These are sensitive issues which can lead to another situation. If the state was cognizant of that fact, I don't think we would have had this kind of riots over demands. And once, of course, it went out of hand, and they can just control it.
Okay. Rami, your opinion on this, the High Court on Wednesday, taking out the contentious portion?
Good evening, Karthike. Let me just say, in my opinion, there's nothing to get excited about. This removal, it has zero impact. Honestly, this is a retrospective act by the High Court. The section 17.3 of the order has been struck off, meaning the state government, because it also gives a time. So the state government now is under no obligation to send the recommendation within 2 weeks and 1 year, as it was later amended by the central government. So there is no time restraint. And of course, the original position of exercising discretion to send the recommendation for inclusion still remains. So, the government still needs to reply. So in my opinion, the direction to send the recommendation still stands valid. However, even if someone was to argue that that's not the case, inclusion of scheduled tribe listing is not dependent on what the High Court recommends, doesn't recommend, what time it gives you, doesn't give you, because it's the state government that has to recommend it. Then there is a long procedure wherein it will go to TRI, it will go to NCST, there'll be other organizations that will study the veracity of the claim. Then it will reach a point where the parliament can take a call on it. So, I don't think this is, this changes anything.
Okay. You're saying it doesn't change anything. But do you think it will have an impact to soothe the raw nerve? Because the other parties say that, as you said, it doesn't change anything.
Karthike, I've always held the position that everybody has the right to demand. If the Meiteis want to demand for scheduled tribe inclusion, who is anybody to say that they cannot do that? As long as they do it peacefully, as long as, they do it legally. Now, the demand itself is a right that they have. So they can demand it. Now, somebody getting upset about it, you can get upset if your scheduled tribe status is being removed. But you cannot get upset if, a scheduled tribe status as per the regulations of what, the government of India stipulates, is being followed. Now that depends on all these processes. So I don't think this should have been a point of debate to begin with. It was very wrong to protest against what is a constitutional, you have a constitutional right to demand. So, it was anyway very wrong to protest against this. Now, having said that, of course, the debate is much, deeper. If you want to talk about who can be included in a scheduled tribe list and who cannot, then we have to be able to define who is a scheduled tribe. Then we have to, open the debate up to the arguments around it as to what was stipulated in the 70s. Does it still stand today?
Correct.
So these are very, very difficult, complex debates. It's not as simple as, the HC recommended, we got angry, so we decided to protest. You lose public favor by being petulant like this. This is a constitutional right. Anybody can demand for whatever they want. Whether it has to be given or not is dependent on the veracity of the claim, where there are processes that have been laid to determine that. And why should we not allow these processes to take place? How can we protest against already laid processes by our constitution? So this is my problem, because you cannot hold it to ransom, you cannot hold our processes to ransom. And I don't think this is a valid claim. Of course, when it comes to the conflict that ensued, I have never believed that it was this recommendation. I think this was an excuse. We already know that smaller level, conflicts were already going on. There were issues that were cropping up 6 months before this. Yes, could there have been a better response? Of course, who is to say there couldn't have been? Of course, there could have been a better response. But we are not in that position now to debate that, because things have become so much more complex, so much more complicated. Now we have the Myanmar factor, we have the demographic change, we have the illegal immigration, we have the drug nexus, so you have to look at it as a whole. I don't think you can blame the conflict that Manipur sadly has seen as has impacted all the communities involved based on a High Court order, which any person belonging to a scheduled tribe will know is not a full and final recommendation.
Okay, I think that's very well put. That's very well put. But Suhas also wanted to come in. But there is also a subsequent issue which we'll raise up on the other side of the break, is that this the whole SoO extension of the SoO Pact has also come up. And basically the cycle of violence which started, and the court's proceedings, are they connected or disconnected? But before that, let me tell you, we are counting down to the big event that News9 is organizing this coming weekend. The News9 Global Summit is about New India that is recognized as a rising economic power and a major global player. Theme of the summit is how India is poised for the next big leap. What India thinks today. Summit is being organized by the TV9 group, and the edition of the summit is unmissable because the keynote address is by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. What India thinks today, summit Feb 25th, 26th, 27th.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है मनी9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा।
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
In our previous episode, we took you around the city where we witnessed the chaos of Bengaluru's roads, the frustration of commuters, and the everyday battle of a Bengalurian.
We are traveling again from KR Market to Whitefield, but this time we are not doing it in a car, but we are doing it in Bangalore's lifeline, the metro.
The football is mother of all games.
It is a team sport.
The leadership attitude is taking the ownership.
It's always a big responsibility to take decisions and the right decisions.
I always question the stereotypical.
And that's why you are in that position.
This and more, streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Now let me straight away go to Suhas. Suhas, you wanted to come in, you wanted to make a point?
No, just small point. The point is what the High Court judgment or order of 19 April 2023 sought to do what was basically short circuit the entire process by, putting aside the entire process of recognition of a community for listing as a scheduled tribe. They just threw it under the bus and they said, you actually make make the recommendation to include them. The recommendation of the Manipur government need not necessarily be positive.
Okay.
It need not necessarily be negative. It could be anything based on the findings. And what we had seen that, all over the country, states usually declare certain communities as scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, OBCs for electoral purposes. And in 2014 March, the judges were declared as the OBCs by the UPA government. Prior to the election, it was upheld to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, a bench headed by Justice Ranjan Gogoi. So what I'm trying to say is that, when the courts try to circumvent or circuit the processes, then of course it leads to other problems. Of course, there are a number of other factors, but this High Court did not have the jurisdiction to recommend or to direct for inclusion. It is not necessary for the Manipur government to find out they should be included. Of course, it's their legitimate demand. They may establish that they should be included. At the end of the day, if they possibly did not oppose in 1949, if they wanted to be included in the list which was prepared in 1950, Meiteis would have been included, and lots of other communities would have been included, like the Minas in Rajasthan, etc. That's the point. The point is the recommendation of the state government could be anything, both positive and negative. And here, court dictated that you had to recommend, and that was what the concern about. And of course, if there were all other factors which have been building up because of the forest rights issues, land, territories, it just contributed to that. And that's the only clarification.
Okay, fair enough. But let me take you to a different aspect. I'll go to Mr. Toming first. This rally which was taken out in Imphal, a huge rally, it was on the extension of the SoO Pact. It seems that in the valley there is a very strong public sentiment against extending pact with the SoO militants.
After the Manipur mayhem since May 3rd, and this is the 10th month, and it might go on to 11th month and then 1 year also. The way any tripartite arrangement reached by the union of government, the state government, and then the insurgency groups, it has taken different hues and colors now. And somewhere the concern is at a union level, how do you stabilize Manipur? In fact, it is all connected to the idea of insurgency movement also. And India government did achieve some kind of a success with the framework agreement with the NSCN, but it has been 10 years since. And we are stuck on the constitution and then the flag issue. And meanwhile, this escalation of ethnic violence has happened. What I want to understand and also maybe put to perspective is that the idea of whatever the reservation and then the SoO concern, these are all interconnected, and somewhere it boils down to this idea of a political identity connected to the idea of the political rights of being a citizen. And then also once you're a citizen, that other concern of domiciliarity in the context of your civil rights and your civil liberties, etc., etc. And therefore, once we would be able to achieve a certain kind of a larger peace at the union level, this kind of rally, this kind of attack on certain arrangement made by the union government would not have existed. But then certain grip that government has, certain achievement that government has, it has been in one way lost due to the mayhem and then the partisan politics, which has now deeply taken over the entire state of Manipur, and there's a fear that it might percolate to other states in the region also.
Okay. Captain Sharma, is it because of the fact that there are so many guns in the valley that this disarmament is not taking place because the one side feels that there are already guns available in the hill areas because of the SoO agreement, SoO Pact?
Yeah, guns are available in valley as well as the hills. We all know it. Some because of the looting of the arms from police arms custody, and secondly, the arms and ammunition hauled by the SoO armed groups, and also the uninterrupted supply of arms and ammunition from the neighboring country. As far as the valley, say, people who are having the arms and ammunition, mostly they must be with the BAN organizations under UAPA, I'm sure, and mostly they are confined towards the valley, so their ammunition replenishment and supplies are soaked up because of the Kuki-dominated areas, the hill areas, and also the security forces available. So they may be having guns, but their ammunition must be, by now, it would have been exhausted. And we have heard the illegally supplying by the some so allegedly or reportedly by police personnel or some other personnel. And so the ammunition is very important. Without
no,
ammunition,
my question was different. My question was this, Mr. Sharma. An agreement which was not part of public narrative has become contested, and you have huge rallies that are being taken out. Rami, why has it become so contested? I'll come to you, Mr. Sharma. That was the question. Why has this aspect become so contested now?
Karthikeya, are you talking about the aspect of the SoO agreement coming up for renewal?
Yes, it was. I never read it in newspapers 2 years ago. There were barely any write-ups.
Absolutely. Now the problem is that when the SoO agreement was put together so many years ago, there were many factors, and it was essentially a good agreement, because there has to be ways wherein we have young people and people who've been misled, who've gone into this sort of insurgency. There has to be a way to bring them back without any fear, and the SoO agreement in all essence was not a bad agreement. However, it was an idealistic agreement. Now, it said things like, you have to stop recruitment. It said you can't wear uniforms, how militias wear uniforms. However, what has happened over a period of time, and, this is not debatable, this is very evident, this is out in, this is out in public discourse as well, that a lot of the agreement points of the SoO have been violated. We see a lot of young SoO members. How are they so young, 20, 25 years old? What do you mean? When the SoO was signed, they were what, 5 years old? So there has been active recruitment. There is no doubt about that. There has been a misuse of, there was one of the points was that only about 20% of those under the SoO agreement can go outside the camps. There has been fairly wide knowledge that, they've been free to go up and down. The SoO camps could not be around highways, could not be around key infrastructure, around cities. That also, the way the SoO camps are laid out is something that has made the valley population anxious. So, in my opinion, Karthikeya, the problem here is that the SoO agreement has been violated, and it's not been violated once, it's been violated multiple times. And in the light of this conflict, the problem arose was that those who were under this agreement got involved in the conflict, which is a grave violation again of the agreement. Now, what needs to really be done is we need to wait and see that it's up for renewal, what the governments do. We need to see if they come up with an alternative plan, whether the agreement is modified or whether it is withdrawn. But we also have to humbly accept that sometimes intentions are good, but maybe the proper functioning of it, the implementation of that over a period of time, according to the context, doesn't remain as we had expected to. Therefore, it needs to be revised. And I think that is a rational way to look at it. You can be concerned about it, you can protest about it, as long as those protests are peaceful, as long as they don't cause any further disruption in the state. But the way I'd look at it is I just wait for the 29th. That's when it's up for renewal.
You made an important point. You were saying that maybe it was a good concept, but in practice it has been violated. I think I'll take the conversation forward from here. Dr. Tomming, do you feel that the SoO Pact has been violated?
In the present scenario of Manipur, I don't think anything is normal. Maybe the idea is of survival. That's the greater idea. And again, I would rather go deeper into the concern of state also, because can we ask this question that is the state still in existence? Of course, it is still in existence technically, but then the objectives of the states and then the presence of state is not at all felt. So in one way, it's like Hobbes' state of nature, or maybe the idea of the Rousseau concern of the state of nature, and then the larger context now is what is your social contract now? What is the contract? What is to be gained out of it? In fact, one party asserts that there has to be complete separation. So should there be a contract on that? Another party says the integrity is everything, and therefore whatever for the protection and preservation of integrity, any kind of use of force and maybe political propaganda is also allowed, and therefore maybe some kind of militia creation is being organized, whereby the state legislative assembly members are in one way or the other muffled and made to align to whatever they want to achieve in the larger interest of the idea of the integration policies.
Okay.
So these contesting claims are very, very, very complex right now.
Okay, you're saying these claims are contesting. Mr. Sharma, do you think that SoO Pact need to be reworked?
Yeah, I would like to add a few points in what Rami said. She has covered extremely well. And first of all, the SoO agreement has been withdrawn by the state government in last year, sometime in February, which is a tripartite agreement. And if one party withdraws, it becomes null and void as per the agreement. This is number one. Number two, this, as per the Indian Agreement Act 1872, Section 24, it is an illegal. The agreement cannot be, the agreement itself is illegal, it is void ab initio, because arms cannot be handled by civilian people except the military personnel, except the category 4, and what SoO arms groups are having is all categorized as a military arms. So itself is illegal, and it violates Arms Act 1958 and Arms Rule 2016, and which is amended in 2020, which I have not read. So this agreement itself is null and void. And so the Manipur government already has terminated. So people are feeling the heat of the this agreement. Earlier they were not knowing. Still the attack by the SoO armed groups are still on in the Sugnu for last 1 week or so. It is high time we must abrogate this, and people should be treated equally, so that armed forces, security forces, they can do their work in the presence of the Special Armed Force Act. In the hill areas, they are not able to do anything. We have many visuals, the armed groups blocking the security forces, vehicles and all. These are the examples. So it must be abrogated, and this is what I have to say, Kartik.
Brijesh?
Well, I think, I agree with Ravi when she's saying that, whenever you have any new scheme implemented, with you have the best of intentions, you want the best to happen vis-a-vis that particular scheme. But as we have seen in innumerable number of schemes which, the government has launched or the government is part of, once it starts, it requires a certain tweaking, it requires a factoring in of whether, any violation is taking place. If violation is taking place, why it is not being checked by the authorities who are supposed to keep a close eye on how it should have, it should have happened. And from 2008 till 2014, 24, it's 16 years. I think a lot of situation on the ground has also changed. In the last 9 months, we have seen the kind of violence which has been unleashed on the state of Manipur. It requires a relook. I'm not saying that, abrogation is the only key, because that is a key and constant demand of the Meitei group, but it definitely does need a hard look as to whether the key provisions of the SoO agreements are being violated or not, whether new gang members are included or not, and if at all, whether tweaking or completely doing away will do the justice. I think the government really needs to have a hard look at it.
Mr. Chakma?
Well, the government is in an extremely difficult position, and this is what happens if you continue to, delay the process of finding solution. And if we have declared the, 2008, the suspension of operations agreement had come, and now if we cannot find the solutions after 16 years, it speaks of the fact that none of the governments had any priority with respect to finding solutions, whatever these groups are demanding. In the process, of course, everybody in Manipur has violated, and the armed groups, in any case, even in the best of circumstances, they always, use any kind of, ceasefire agreement to essentially extort freely. And it's not of only the groups in Manipur, everywhere. Whenever the government actually enters into an agreement, and whenever they are free to move around, the extortion goes up. And now, if you look at the government of India, they're in an extremely difficult situation, because what had not happened in the last 76 years, you have the entire government of Myanmar collapsing faster than anybody had existed. So you have a new reality. So if you do not engage, or if you do not find some kind of agreement with the cookie groups, in any case, you do not have the Burmese security forces on the other side of the border. Everything has collapsed. Your Kaladin port has gone for a sixth. The Arakan army has taken over the Chin Hills. It's exactly the same. And in Sayangan region, if you look at it, the Burmese security forces do not exist. You do not have any interlocutor on the other side of the border except the Myanmarese junta, and they no longer control. So what do? It's better that you engage in ceasefire agreement, because if the government of India does not sign or extend the ceasefire agreement with the cookie insurgent groups, it has nothing to do with Manipur's internal politics. I am saying that this will create a situation which you are looking at present in Mizoram. There is no insurgency, but look at Chittagong Hill tracks. Look at Rakhine State, where the Arakan army is operating, and look at the Chin National Front, and where the Chin National Front has been taking over. You do not have any interlocutor on the other side. It's a bad situation. So you have a new reality which you require, not because possibly you want to extend it, but because of the fact that on the other side, you have a collapsing state, a classic failed state, which at this point of time, we are not even considering. Because at the end of the day, the Chinese have enormous amount of control on all insurgent groups, including the Arakan army. And I have written a couple of days back, in the Chittagong Hill tracts of Bangladesh, the Chinese are teaching Cantonese to the Chakma and other tribal girls. At least 1,000 girls have married Chinese, and the Chinese can live in the Chittagong Hill tracts in the border areas of Tripura and Mizoram. But if you as an Indian go, you have to take permission. All other foreigners cannot enter Chittagong Hill tracts, but the Chinese are living there. So the government of India even did not know till I wrote, till I informed that, this is an issue of concern. So, we are sleeping, and we have a new reality in the East.
Rami, I think, Suhas made a very powerful point about the Chinese in the Chittagong Hill tracts. I mean to say, I am alarmed by listening to this. I had no idea, in fact, to be very honest.
Karthikeya, I think, when we look at Myanmar, Myanmar is far more complicated than that. Of course, the Chinese have stakeholdings. We know that with the Three Brotherhood Alliance, they were the ones who were also negotiating, right? So they're playing a double game, because they're in contact with the junta, they're negotiating amongst insurgent groups, but they are not the only players. Of course, like Mr. Suhas mentioned, correctly so, that we've seen the CNA, CNF, take over multiple military outposts, key infrastructure, as well as cities, Kaolin, Khampat. These are all cities that are extremely across the border, extremely important for us. Having said that, I don't think we should discount what the government is doing. I don't think they are unaware. When the junta took over, they were very quick to sort of open channels of communication. I'm sure they have channels of communication open in multiple ways, but I also feel that the complexity of the situation in Myanmar is such, there are so many groups at play, CNF, CNA, there isn't one umbrella group. Who are you going to negotiate with? Of course, that is the reason that they've also revoked the FMR, and they've quickly announced, complete fencing, 1,643 kilometers in India, which is not just aided by like physical fencing, but also, technology. So, I think they are aware of these situations. I think everybody is very concerned about the situation in Myanmar, but it's a wait and watch game. There is limited, it's a limited play that we can make. NUG is sitting out of, it's a government in exile, it's sitting out of DC, it's taking the help of the US, to play its cards in Myanmar. So who are we negotiating with? This is problematic at this point, but it will clear with time, I'm sure. And I'm sure that the government of India is paying close attention to, what is happening in Myanmar. That fact isn't lost on anybody. Having said that, I think what we need to do is we also need to bring about this sense of responsibility among citizens in these states, in the Northeast, especially communities on the border, because while whatever is happening in Myanmar, we've also seen certain sections of communities who are saying, well, we have transnational ethnic ties. Why is FMR being suspended? There's absolutely no support for actions that are being taken by the government to solve this problem. And if we want to avoid a Mizoram sort of a situation, we know, as well, that, there's no way you can be heavy-handed on these populations. We will end up alienating them. So, there has to be this exercise where, the state government and other, Manipur is a state of CSOs and all sorts of organizations, where there is a determined effort to create some amount of faith in the actions that the government is taking, the central government is taking, and to be able to condemn these voices that come up that say, well, you can't take any action in blocking the borders.
Mm-hmm. But, I would only say at the end, the biggest casualty in this context has been the soft power diplomacy. If you look at it, the FMR, the people-to-people movement. Thank you all of you for joining me. But I would say that in the end, I think the biggest problem is that our soft power diplomacy has suffered in context of integration with Southeast Asia. If you look at the geography of the Northeast and its historical connection, it's far more closer to the Chittagong port than the Calcutta port. It's far more closer to other road networks than to, I would say, even Patna. So, those historical linkages have suffered. Now, Rami very rightly pointed out, I completely agree that, it's very difficult for any government to be heavy-handed, because ultimately it's not only about the Kuki issue. Then you have the Mizo issue, and then you also have the Naga issue. And our boundaries have been drawn by the Britishers in a way which has created historical legacy issues, not only in the South Asian subcontinent, but in fact in the West Asia, as the Sykes-Picot Accord, they took a scale and divided. But coming back to the issue of Manipur, I would say that yes, the larger issue is that India is moving into the election mode. The all eyes would be in the electoral process. So I'm sure that I would say that it cuts both ways. It will take attention away from Manipur. Maybe it will give time for people to do the real work which is required, away from the media gaze. Or maybe, since the attention is away, it remains the same. Ultimately, it cuts both ways. So I don't know which way it's going to cut, but in the end, Manipur needs to benefit.
A defiant performance by Tan Hag's men. Now standing at 7 feet 4 inches, Satnam Singh is making his way into professional wrestling.
We are getting more good news for India.
We are trying a lot of experiments, innovations and ideas.
We came out with a new format in audio, which is audio series.
Listing for content-oriented company in India, which is a very unique proposition.
When we look at audio in general, we had music, which is like extremely old format, and then we had podcast.
A natural extension to Pocket FM is to move from Hindi to regional content. I think I'd love to see their FY24 numbers, which they claim will be close to 1,000 crores. I think there are talks of them to raise another $80 to $100 million of funding.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as